Hello, everyone. I think we are live. Thanks for joining today and welcome to this Product People event, our weekly live stream. Before starting, please remember that you can watch the stream on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and even Twitch. So you can choose the platform of your liking. And this talk will be recorded. So if you want to share it afterwards with your fellow PMs, just head out to our YouTube channel. Throughout our session, you will be able to ask questions and answer polls with our Slido code. So you can either go to slido.com and enter the code you can see on the screen or scan the QR code on the left with your phone. You will also have the opportunity to go there later as well. So we will have that throughout the presentation. So our guest today is Begoña Sesé. Sorry if I butchered your name. I'm not familiar with Spanish that much. And she will be talking about the Stoic product manager. I'll introduce her in a bit more in a moment. So very briefly about myself. So I'm your host today. My name is Kerstin, and you can look at my CV here, but I will not go through it because you're not here because I'm here. So in short, I've worked as an individual contributor in product and project management for a couple of years already in various different industries and companies, and yeah, still continue to love working in product and tech. So briefly about Product People and what we actually do. So our mission is to help companies discover and deliver great products faster. We empower our product management community, so you, to share knowledge generously while managing the hands-on work of product managers, owners, operations, or product leaders on a fractional basis. And that's basically how we make money. And what's special about this is that we onboard fast, align teams, and deliver outcomes thanks to our in-house team. And we also create free events like this one for one of the biggest PM communities with around 60,000 members in Europe and all across the world. So I hope you are ready. Let's do a quick icebreaker before we actually start the session and for us to get to know our audience, so you. So we have a question for you. You can open slido.com and enter the code you see on the screen. And also, as mentioned, you can scan the QR code. So for the ones watching on other platforms, please feel free to share your answers in the comments as well if you don't have access to Slido. So our question for you today is, what's the hardest part of staying calm as a product manager? Is it constant context switching, conflicting stakeholder expectations, pressure to deliver fast, or navigating ambiguity with limited information? Let's see what you think. Pressure to deliver fast is currently at top, at the first spot. That's always something to be nervous about. Conflicting stakeholder expectations is picking up. No one has issues with ambiguity. That's great. I give it a couple of more seconds. Vote fast. We want your answers. Well, looks like conflicting stakeholder expectations is one of the most pressing issues, followed by navigating ambiguity with limited information. So actually, people do have issues with that as well. In the third place, pressure to deliver fast and constant context switching isn't too much of an issue, which is nice because then you can actually focus on your work and have some deep focus time. So, Begoña, over to you in a moment, but first I will introduce you. So Begoña is a product leader specializing in AI and natural language processing and humanitarian intelligence solutions, currently head of product at Hala Systems in Lisbon, with previous experience at the Adecco Group, where she led chatbot development impacting millions of users. Her background is in telecommunication engineering with biomedical engineering specialization And she also teaches product management at Nova Talent while mentoring young professionals. Lastly, she is passionate about communication, improv theater, sports like padel, crossfit, and bachata, arts, and travel. So I will hand over to you now, Begoña, and stop sharing my screen. The stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. What a nice introduction. I don't have anything else to say about myself. No, just joking. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining today. It's a pleasure for me to be here, especially at this moment of the year. I don't know if you've realized, but today is the 2nd of December. So I don't know what happened with the year, but 2025 is almost over. And I always like to take this moment of the year to reflect a little bit on how the rest of the year has been. So while I was doing some initial reflections, I was seeing that this was quite an exciting year for me, but also quite challenging for different reasons. We are working on finding product market fit for a specific product at our company. We work as a team with more than 15 people just in the tech team, 15 more or less, and all the challenges that it emerged, let's say. Also a lot of context switching, honestly, because I like to jump into every single thing. So there was a lot of challenges here. So I want for you to reflect how was this year for you? I know we still have 1 month to make those reflections. Was it a challenging? Was it very uncertain due to all the things going on with AI and new improvements, which sounds exciting, but at the same time, it opens quite a Pandora box of what would happen next? That's why I'm here today, is because I would love to tell you that philosophy, actually, even if you don't think so, philosophy can help you to deal with that uncertainty, with that context switching, and with those stressful moments that maybe you had over the year, and it can help you to go better around the flow. So today, what I want to do is to give you some tips on how do I apply Stoicism for some of those challenges. So you almost heard everything about me in the presentation. I think this is interesting because each of us come to product management from different paths. I started in engineering, switched a little bit to biomedical, doing some research at the hospital. Then I decided to jump into a different world, marketing. So I was doing more like program management, even organizing events or training. So quite different. And then I decided to come back a bit more to technology. And that was the moment where I heard about product management. I had zero clue of what was product management where I was studying at university. I started this first as what we call success product manager. So we were deploying a solution to up to 30 countries. And then I was the global product manager of that. Just for you to know, it was, for instance, a chatbot solution that helped recruiters and candidates to connect to each other in order to speed up the process of finding a new job. And then after a while in a multinational company, I decided I wanted to test what a startup looked like. And that's where I'm currently head of product at Hala Systems, which is a company that develops technology for some of the most tricky situations, such as conflict-affected areas. We develop different types of technologies, data, and information in order to help civilians and organizations there. So as you can see, quite a diverse thing, but I have to say that that's not only who I am. I think a lot of the things that we do outside of work also contribute to who we are. So that's why I like teaching, mentoring, being a professor. I like to do some other things that teach me things that I bring to work. Like, for instance, improvisation helps me to cope with uncertainty, while ukulele helps me to keep my mind open and keep learning all the time. Traveling helps me keep my curious mindset, and sports help me to get out of my comfort zone. And I'm also a Stoic fan. Why? Well, let me tell you my story. 1 year ago, I decided to join my friend on the right, Miki, on a Spartan race. That's the one that it's not only a race, it's also about obstacles. You get dirty, you jump, you get into the water. It's quite funny, but it was totally out of my comfort zone. And so I decided to go with him. I talked to my friend Irene in the middle about it, and I convinced her to join us. It was in Tenerife. It was just 3 weeks to go, and suddenly she broke her knee. Even if she doesn't know, but to me, she really lived according to some of the Stoic principles, such as calm mindset, looking what is under your control, and seeing the obstacle as an opportunity. What did she do with all of this? She actually decided that she was not going to stay at home while she was waiting for a surgery. She decided to join us in Tenerife. She took some of the most amazing shots, and she was with us during the whole time. Life changes, and as a coincidence, this year, literally 1 year after, my other friend Miki got the same injury, and now he's waiting to get the surgery too. He started meditating. He did it in the past, but he meditated, he discussed it, and he does a lot of journaling in order to see how he could cope with all of this, because that's a lot, because these two friends are very sportive friends. All this story tells you why I like Stoicism, because Stoicism, I don't know if you know what it is, but it's a philosophy, an ancient Greek and later Roman philosophy that focus on showing people how to live a good life. It emphasizes a lot on living what it considers living with nature. That means also living with the rational part, cultivating virtue, reason, and inner resilience. And it also provides a lot of practical techniques, for facing this adversity, making it still relevant nowadays. Let me wait for a second. Does any of you know about Stoicism? Do you recognize any of the Stoics over here? Maybe some names sound familiar. If we look here, we have, for instance, here Epictetus. Maybe one of the most common ones and famous is Marco Aurelius. We have also Seneca. We have Musonius Rufus. We have then Chrysippus, Cleanthes. I don't know, maybe some of these names sound familiar. And even if they sound familiar, maybe you're thinking right now, okay, Bego, very nice Stoicism, great that you are into it, but what is in it for me? Well, maybe you feel related with these statistics. 49% of product people have experienced burnout based on the Product Academy report of 2024. And even if we don't only have product people over here, I'm sure you can get familiar with this. Burnout, it's when you have reached already a step in which sometimes there is no way back, you need to take a sick leave and so on. And I really want you to not get into that half of the product people that jump into that stage. There are a lot of things that we can do in our way whenever we feel that there are some signs of stress or accumulated stress that can help us prevent that. And if you're still not convinced that this could be for you, let me know if you feel connected with any of these challenges. I think you do, because based on the survey at the beginning, you mentioned that, you are quite familiar with sometimes unforeseen obstacles, even if uncertainty was not the most voted one. Maybe you feel related to scope creep, shifting priorities. Maybe you have some issues with the stakeholder alignment and communication, one of the top ones based on the survey, and all of that can lead to pressure and emotional stress. So as you can see, this is common to product managers. This is common to many other roles also. And I'm going to show you how we can apply Stoicism to each of them with practical tips to make sure that we live more in peace. So we are going to apply today the 4 main Stoic virtues. Going over them briefly, wisdom is about how we can discern truth from falsehood, kind of having a clear thinking. The courage is to be able to have the strength to face fear and adversity and act despite feeling like that. Then we're going to go over justice. This is about fairness and treating others with respect and making sure that we look for common good. And finally, we're going to focus on self-discipline, that this is about how we can control, moderate, and balance our desires and emotions. So with that, let's go for it. Let's start with uncertainty and unforeseen obstacles. Can you think of some challenges around this category? Here are some of them. Maybe you think about the market dynamics. We were talking at the beginning about AI, right? AI is exciting, but it can also really change the way that we work, that we interact with others, the way that we do our own work. Maybe it even can, some people fear that it can take its own job. There are some technical hurdles. There could be issues such what happened to us. And this is where I'm going to share a story. Last year, it was a kind of a difficult moment for the company. We went through 2 restructuring processes. So that meant that in the moment that I was given the role of head of product, actually half of my team was let go. As you can imagine, I don't know if any of you have gone through any of these situations, both in any of the sides of the equation, but it's a tough moment because there is a lot of emotional burden that is there, anxiety, you think a lot of your colleagues, or if you're the one affected, you think about what's going to happen next. And even for the people that stay, you can also think that you could be the next one. So in this case, we want to apply wisdom. No, wisdom is about how we can see reality clearly, trying to make a bit more sound judgment, choosing actions based on truth rather than emotions. And it's basically about how we can cut through noise and focus on rational thinking. So I will let you know what are my 3 tips for this that help me to go through this process. There is one point about accepting that change is inevitable. I heard once a sentence that is like, change is the only constant thing in life. And it's true, even when you're working as a team, even in relationships, things always evolve. And sometimes we really want things to stay the same way, but it's almost impossible for that. So there is one key thing on component about understanding that we are going to evolve and that things cannot remain stable forever. The second one is a bit hard for me, if I'm honest. I always try to think positively, but this one is premeditation malorum. It means kind of imagining, anticipating adversity and risks. So for instance, this one, whenever you're going to do a deployment or a release, a big release, if you think of what are the possible scenarios that could go wrong, it might let you not to do a release on a Friday if people are not working over the weekend. So it's much better to do a release on Monday. Or another thing is the pre-mortem exercises. Sometimes it's about thinking about all the things that could go wrong in order to anticipate and put some actions there. And the third one is about concentrating on your areas of control. This is one of the most powerful tools that help me. It goes from what we consider circle of concern until circle of control. The circle of concern is everything that happens in life that we have almost zero impact or influence. This could be things like climate change. It could be about politics. It could be about different wars. And sometimes we are overwhelmed with a lot of information about all these conflicts that we cannot act upon. So that generates a lot of frustration, a lot of mental burden also, because we cannot act upon them. But then it doesn't mean that we cannot influence some of them. So in the circle of influence, a bit closer to us, those are those things that we can really do. It's not fully dependent on us, but we can influence them. For instance, if you go to an interview, you can influence the result of the interview, but ultimately it won't be your decision to make. So if you go to an interview as a candidate and then you can prepare for the interview, you can check the role, you can check the company, and then you can come there as prepared as possible. But if they will take you or not is ultimately out of your control. And that leads to the circle of control. What are the things that are really, really, really in your control? That means your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, the amount of times you do sports, the food that you eat. All of these things are totally in your control and are up to you to decide. So we cannot control the external events around us, but we can control our reactions to them. And that's what we have to keep from that one. This is a quote from Epictetus. Now it's your turn. Think about or write it down for later for you to reflect on a moment at work recently where you felt confused, overwhelmed, or unsure about what would happen next. Once you think about that situation, try to think of what were the actions that were really dependent on you. Maybe if you want to go a layer deeper, what are the things that you could influence despite they weren't totally in your control? You have it? Have you written it down? All right, if so, we move forward with the next challenge. The second key challenge for product managers is the scope creep. Shifting priorities. Suddenly you have a new client that says, hey, I really want this, really, really. It's just this last thing, and it's huge. So evolving requirements, or suddenly there is a member of your team that is in sick leave, or they take them out for a different project. So then you have a lot of resource constraints. What I'm going to tell you is a situation when I joined my current company, Hala. It was 3 years ago, and I was given a product that in less than 6 months, we decided to close. We were analyzing it and we understood that it was a product for being developed in Syria. And we understood that in Syria, the situation had changed over time, and the country needs were not anymore according to the product. So the impact that we were generating was very little. Apart from that, there were other tools that were doing the same job. So in that moment, it was a little bit like difficult because on one side, I didn't feel like I had all the information to make that decision. Two, I joined a company, I was given a product, and I was going to close it out. So it led me to, okay, now what's next? So this is where we can apply courage. As we discussed at the beginning, courage is about facing this fear, this difficulty, and change, but with strength, integrity, and resilience. So it means being able to speak up and to make the tough calls, trying to choose for the long term rather than the short term comfort. So the actions that I put in practice, for instance, I try to keep in mind the product's core value. Whenever you hear like new requests coming in, try to think if they really align with what you're trying to build for the product in the long-term vision. If it's not fully aligned, or if you're not generating the impact that you wanted, be brave to give that courageous no. In our case, it was like, no, we are stopping this product. It's not making the right impact. And the third Stoic practice is the obstacle is the way. Treat it as a learning experience. Remember when I told you that last year the company went through the restructuring processes? Well, after 2 months of the last restructuring, my manager quit, and it was a person that was quite close to me and also giving me a lot of certainty in an uncertain moment. So in that moment, I was like, okay, what's going to happen? And I decided to see it as an opportunity. So actually, that role was never filled back. So now I decided to take a bit more of the space. Now I'm more in strategic discussions, having directly discussions with the CEO. And it was only an opportunity that emerged based on this situation that at the beginning I really didn't like. So about this topic about the obstacle is the way, never forget, there is an opportunity to improve our condition. There is also a book that is from Ryan Holiday that is super famous that goes much deeper into how to treat that. So now it's your turn again. Please write down this question. Think about a moment when something at work derailed your plans. Maybe it was this new request, a surprise dependency. If you look back, what did that moment teach you about yourself as product managers? Did you learn something? Was there any opportunity that emerged due to that difficult situation? Write it down and think about it later. I would love to comment on it a bit more. Moving on to the next one. This is one of your top ones, so bear with me. Alignment and communication. I think this is the core of product managers. I think we're this intersection into all the different teams. Sometimes I feel like we can do a little bit of everything, and yeah, we have so many different roles, and it depends on the team that we adjust based on what are the needs and the gaps, right? So there's always a communication issue there. We always have to collaborate cross-functionally. There are a lot of expectations on the product manager. What are you going to do the next? When is this going to be ready? What features are you developing or dropping off? And also there is a lot of culture diversity in all this collaboration. For instance, in all the different teams that I've worked as product manager, there were people from all over the world, from one side to the other. And at some point in some situations, we identified that the teams were not really talking to each other, or they were a bit confrontational. And I think they were even taking things a bit personal. So when we reflected a bit about that, we realized that actually there are a lot of differences also based on the culture and how we approach relationships. It could be based on building trust within the team or building tasks. It could be related with how we communicate and give feedback to each other. Some people and some cultures prefer being more direct and others more indirect. So there are a lot of differences. And if we don't try to be curious and open about how the others might feel, we might always take it personal. So there is an additional source that I added there. It's about Culture Map from Erin Mayer. I definitely recommend you check it out if you're interested in the topic. So here is where we can apply the Stoic virtue of justice. Justice is about acting fairly, with respect, and with willingness to collaborate for the good of the team. Remember that you are all working on the same team. So that means that you're working for the common good. So This is foundational. The Stoic practice have to do with promoting this transparent communication, trying to look for the common good, being a bit more empathetic with each other, understanding where the other person could come from. For that, practice radical active listening. That means the 2:1 ratio, maybe you've heard it, is about we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means we should listen twice as times as we speak. And this is sometimes things that we don't really do. Whenever you're in conversations, think if you are already thinking about how you are going to reply to the other person, rather than really thinking about what the other person is telling you. And once you have done that exercise is when you can pass your answer through the triple filters test. What is that? It's a filter test that is associated with Socrates. The history tells that there was a kind of a student that came to Socrates and it was like, teacher, you cannot believe what I heard about you in the Stoa. The Stoa is the place where it comes to Stoicism because it's one of kind of the pillars where the Stoics used to meet and to dialogue and so on in the main square. And it was like, okay, Socrates stopped the student and say, before you tell me what you heard, tell me if that what you heard is true. The student was like, no, it's actually not true because I know you and I know that you didn't do that. Okay, then maybe it's good, something good for me. No, actually, it's definitely not good. It was actually something bad about yourself. Oh, well, maybe it's something that is going to be useful and it's going to make me better. No, I don't think it is going to make you much better. Then if it's not true, if it's not good for me, or if it's not useful, then don't tell me that. And I think we have to reflect about it whenever we speak and tell and give feedback, because we have to remember that in both ways. Also, when we hear our feedback, everything we hear is an opinion. It doesn't need to be a fact. Everything we hear is a perspective and not the ultimate truth. This is something that Marcus Aurelius said. So keep in mind what is the purpose of what you're communicating, and also what is the purpose of the other person communicating to you, okay, to put things a bit into perspective. So now it's your turn. Think about a recent conversation when you felt misunderstood or you misunderstood someone else. And by the way, I think this is extremely powerful, not only for work, but also in your life with friends, with family, or with your partner. If you could replay that moment and imagine that you were fully present with curiosity, with an open heart, what would you do differently? Write it down, and I really encourage you to think about it. Not only of what happened in the past, but also try to apply this in future situations. And this leads us to the last one, the pressure and emotional stress. There are so many situations that can bring us to here, right? Different challenges like high stakes pressure, like there's an important release, or I don't know, dreaming big, like your company goes IPO. There's a lot of pressure around that. Tight feedback loops, they want you to deliver this fast. There's an important demo. I know that my team can relate to that currently. Or some feelings that suddenly there is a change of direction and you didn't see where that was coming and you have to change everything. All this resulting in a lot of emotional overload. I remember a situation in which there was a manager that came to us and said, like, no, we have to do this new integration with your product. I was like, where is this coming from? No, this country really needs this integration. It's going to happen, that's it. And I remember that I went from 0 to 100 at that point. I felt like super frustrated with anger. I left the call and I was like, what is happening with me? Why did I feel like that? And that's where we can apply really self-discipline. Self-discipline is about being able to manage your own impulses, emotions, and reactions to try to stay balanced and intentional. So what did I do in this case? The first thing is to pause. It sounds very obvious, but it's really one of the biggest things that for me, to pause and breathe a little bit. Sometimes meditation, it also helps. And when I did this process, I realized that actually what was happening to me was that it was not that we had to do one more integration. The core problem was that I had the team at 100% capacity. I know they were giving their best. We were with a lot of competing priorities, and just adding this, I knew it was going to be a big burden for them. So I was worried about the team. By identifying what was really triggering me, I could have a more honest conversation with this person, or even with my manager if we needed more team, more people on our team, or if we really needed to stop that integration. Another thing that really helps me is journaling. I don't do it a lot. I wish I do it more, but I realized last 10 days ago or something like that, I was coming back from a conference and I decided to write for a bit when I was on the plane. I started writing and I realized that at the beginning, my mind was going so much faster than my writing. This happens to me also when I speak sometimes. And my writing was much slower. So I realized that at the beginning I was kind of frustrated writing, but when I finished writing, I realized how my brain and my hand had both connected to each other. So my brain was much calmer, much lower pace than I started writing. And that, for instance, this principle is the meditations of Marcus Aurelius, is a core point in all of these. Those are just journaling that Marcus Aurelius did for himself. That's it. And the third practice, now that we're speaking about airplanes, is this point about viewing from above. Viewing from above means, imagine that you're on a plane, you have this big problem, and then you go on a plane and you start looking at the problem a little bit smaller. Suddenly, the problem that you look from the window is not as big as you thought it was. There's another way to see it. It's also looking at, for instance, 6 years ahead. Is that email that your colleague sent you that really disturbed you that important? Or that request that your manager just asked you to do, was that really that relevant to trigger you? Would you even be thinking about it in 6 years? Most probably the answer is no. That means it's not a problem that it deserves all your attention and your emotional drain. The extreme of this vision is also what is super Stoic, is very famous, is memento mori. That is the ultimate resource that is also thinking and acknowledging that our lives have an end and how important this is in our overall look of it. So remember that whenever you think about too much ahead, whenever you think that your problem is too big and so on, remember that happiness is enjoying this present moment without this anxious dependency of what the future is holding. This is something that Seneca says, and this is also something that you can apply here. So imagine the last moment at work when things felt out of control. Maybe they were going too fast, or the pressure suddenly increased when you receive an email from the manager of your manager. Which of these practices, maybe the pausing, maybe the looking from above, which practice would have helped you to make a clearer decision? Write it down and dedicate a couple of minutes after. So what are the key takeaways of everything that we've seen here? The key thing is that with all these practices, we can strengthen our wisdom by focusing on what we can control, accepting that change is inevitable sometimes, and trying to anticipate some challenges with a calm mindset. The second one is to try to grow our courage by reflecting on the long-term vision of the product, saying no when needed, and treating obstacles as opportunities to grow, resilience and personally and professionally. The third one, practice justice in relationships by communicating transparently, but also applying the triple filter whenever you say something, and radical active listening. Listen with all your heart what the other person is telling you about. And the fourth one, we can build self-discipline by pausing, reflecting before reacting, trying to practice the from above perspective, and trying to journal whenever you want to clarify your mind. So with all of that, I hope that if you don't have it clear, and if you say, Bego, this is amazing, but I cannot remember even one thing of what you said, don't worry, bear with me until the end. This is another recap. Imagine that you look 6 years or 6 kilometers away. Look ahead. How important is the problem that you have right now? Another thing that we've learned, try to journal for 5 minutes per day or per week. You can start as simple as that. You will see how good the results are. Another thing that you can do is you can reflect a bit more on the Stoic virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Try to pass everything you say or everything important you say through the triple filters test, Make sure that it's true, it's good, and it's useful for the other person to hear it. Remember the trichotomy of control? That means there are three main circles, but only two in which you can really control something. Your circle of control and the circle of influence. Everything that is outside of that, don't spend time, energy on that. Remember the 2-to-1 ratio? Listen twice the times that you speak, so practice radical active listening. Try to consider every obstacle as an opportunity to grow. So it's not just about resignation, no? In that sense, it's about making sure that you see an obstacle and you think, okay, what I'm going to learn, how I'm going to grow from this opportunity, and ultimately, pause. Pause for a bit. We take life too serious sometimes, and continuous stress in our lives is going to really impact our health, both physically and mentally. It affects also our relationships with other people, and ultimately it also affects work. So that's why this is my takeaway about Stoicism. If there's one thing that Stoicism has given me, it's not a calm job. I don't think our jobs will never be too calm, but at least it's a calmer mind on how to approach my daily work. And if you want to keep reading about Stoicism because you find it interesting, you found that it's still quite modern, that is something that in our fast-paced world, it can still give you something. These are some recommendations. I really recommend the one on the left, A Guide to the Good Life. It's super easy, it's very well written, and it gives you the senses of what Stoicism is. But there are many other books. And if you would like to keep discussing that, aside from the Q&A that we open right now, feel free to reach me out on LinkedIn. I love to discuss about this topic. And if you have any other practices that help you to cope with your daily work in a better way. I hope it was helpful. And yeah, let's open the Q&A. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for your very insightful talk and the recommended books. I personally love the tip about concentrating on your areas of control. I think this is something I try to do personally to keep a positive mindset and not be concerned about things I cannot really influence all day long and feel bad. So love that. So this is a very informative session and hopefully gave everyone food for thought and a couple of tips to implement tomorrow already. So we are starting our Q&A session in a couple of minutes, so feel free to start dropping us your questions that you might have. You can either go to slido.com and enter the code again that you see on the screen or scan the QR code, but you can share your questions with us by sending them in the chat or by commenting on other platforms as well. We will have a look at that. So while you send us over your questions, I will share a bit more about product people. Let's talk about the three most common use cases when you may want to work with us. So we offer interim or fractional support. If you're hiring a product manager or leader and need momentum now, then bringing in an interim PM keeps discovery and delivery moving while you hire your perfect candidate, which often takes 3 to 9 months. So we also cover parental leaves and re-onboard the employee when they're back. And we are also here to accelerate product discovery and delivery for important or urgent initiatives to make a meaningful impact fast. We can also coach your product management team to reach their full potential through streamlining processes from 0 to 1, including product ops and program management. And when you're unsure what to build next, we also assist with product discovery to uncover the next big thing or run a low or no code pilot or MVP to kick off the next iteration of your product. So we have worked with many clients in different industries. Here you can see some of the B2C clients that we worked with, such as eBay, FreeNow, or Backmarket, or you may know others as well. When it comes to B2B clients, we work with companies like the World Health Organization, Localize, and Remote.com. And last but not least, there are some stats worth mentioning about product people. So we supported over 690 cross-functional teams already and over 130 clients from Series A startups to publicly listed companies. And we currently have 40 product leaders and product managers in-house to deliver high-quality services to our clients. And we take pride in having 59% women in the team with 60% in leadership roles. So questions are already coming in, and we will now start the Q&A session. So you can still share your questions with us by sending them in the chat or by commenting on other platforms, but let's start with the first ones. So I hope you have a good answer for all of them because I'm curious as well. No pressure.
No
So
pressure.
thinking about what. So it's the first question. Thinking about what you control versus what you don't. How do you deal when there are too many dependencies not under your control, yet you're still judged by it?
So, okay, let me see if I can reply to that one. Whenever there are too many dependencies, I realize that sometimes you can influence on speeding up those dependencies. So, for instance, well, I can tell you many examples come to my mind, but one of them, for instance, is whenever you want to influence that an onboarding process gets reduced a little bit. We have a lot of paperwork, a lot of steps, and so on. And ultimately, the whole onboarding process is not just on tech, let's say. So on that, what I did, for instance, like, okay, how can I make people get together? I organized a workshop in that particular. We put the flow, and we went step by step of the flow, trying to understand, like, okay, who should jump here? Where are some fires in the sense that nobody's taking care of that? Where are some of the biggest pain points? And we identified 3 main working groups. So in that, it was like, okay, how can we establish a data sharing agreement, how we can simplify different documentation, and the third one was how we can make sure that we have a proper platform for onboarding these users with training material and so on. So there were like 3 different parts of the process, and in the third one, it was the one that we can really influence as tech. So, well, at least we put people together to discuss about it, and then we focus on what we could really control. I hope that helps.
Bringing people together is usually something in your influence or in your sphere of influence, so that's always great.
Totally, and I think it's something that we do a lot as product managers. Some people say that we are the ones that translate complex language for all the audiences. So sometimes we are these intermediaries that have to help different teams to coordinate. So I see that a lot happening. It's a part that I really like about my job, but it can be a bit frustrating because it's not fully under your control. Yeah.
True. The next question is a bit more of a personal one. So the question is this Stoic approach something you take for yourself or you actually implement it within your teams? And if yes, how?
I do it a bit more for myself at the moment, despite I try to, what is my area of influence here? It's about speaking about it or speaking about different parts of it. So for instance, you remember the topic about the culture map? This is also something I brought to my team because I saw that there were some differences in the team. And I was like, okay, how can I support people to be a bit more empathetic? And in that case, it was like, okay, let's bring this one to understand that each of us are coming from different places, have different approaches even on how we do work. And it's not something personal. It can come from our own backpack, right? So I mostly apply it to myself, but then I realized that I have different places where I try to apply it also to my teams. So also the people that I have in my team, like, okay, very nice, but focus, what is what you can control? And based on that, we take it from there rather than overwhelming about the whole process that is happening. And the other thing is when the restructuring happened also, what I could do also, I couldn't affect on people being let go and so on. So what I did is kind of setting up one-on-ones with some of the team members that I saw that needed that a little bit more and trying to see how they were doing. So I think just listening, not trying to convince them that why it was like that and so on. Just being there and listen what were the biggest concerns. I think that's something that helps. But yeah, you gave me an idea. Maybe I can apply it a little bit more and bring it more to the team in case anyone is interested. But yeah, the product manager I have in my team, he's so into stoicism that sometimes we start getting into conversations about it. So yeah, I think it's contagious. Yeah.
I think I have a very fitting follow-up question here. So what was from the principles that you shared the most challenging for you to absorb and to apply?
From all, I would say that I think is the one about looking about all the scenarios that could go wrong. Because I don't like to think about it. I prefer to think that everything will go well and the team will manage and the timelines will be set and there won't be any issues. I have the feeling that sometimes we become too negative, like, no, this cannot be delivered. We don't have resources for that, etc., etc. So that's one of the kind of the practices that to me is a bit harder because it requires to put some glasses that I don't normally wear, but I think they are quite important if we want the product to be a success. So yeah.
Okay, then we have actually a lot of questions. Yeah, let's go with this one. Have you experienced instances where the Stoic mindset breaks down or becomes counterproductive in modern product management?
There is a big criticism that is given to Stoicism that is sometimes they see them as like very cold people because they try to reduce the emotions. But something in the modern Stoicism, what they say is about, it's not really about suppressing your emotions, but it's about not letting them run you, like totally trigger you, and take you to places that you didn't want to or to not make the right decision. So I think if you bring it to the extreme and you become like no feelings, no things like that, that really is not what Stoicism is about, but it could be, then it could be harder to understand each other, to understand where the other person is coming from and so on, because you don't connect to that feeling or that thought. So I think that could be a counterproductive way of using Stoicism. But again, that's not, in my opinion, that's not the perfect use of it.
There was another question that's kind of answered already with this. So the question was, isn't Stoicism about somehow being indifferent and passive? I think you kind of answered that already, but do you want to add something to this one?
There are a lot of more things about Stoicism. There is something they consider about the indifferent, the difference and different. So it means what are the things that you shouldn't really care that much about. And I think it comes back to what is in your control. I think, for instance, the indifference that they consider are things like fame, like money, or power. Those are things that they consider that could come. Doesn't mean like you say no to them. They could come, but it's not the goal. It's not what you should pursue. So I think it's about connecting on what are the things that you should go after, chase, and what are the things that you should focus on. And some of the others might come based on your good work here, but you shouldn't focus on those a bit more abstract things. So, yeah, there is a big discussion also about that one.
Still discussing concepts from 2000 years ago. It's great.
Crazy, right? It's beautiful. I think that's nice because they reflected a lot about it, so it's not anything new. So yeah.
I have a background in the humanities, so I can totally
really?
relate to that. And I'm still curious.
That's the beauty that we are. That's what I tried to say also at the beginning, that we are not always only engineer, product manager. No, we bring with a lot of things to the table and to our work, and that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
That's true. So we do have two more questions. Yeah, that is in time. So in my mind, Stoic is often associated with calmness. So how can PMs balance that Stoic calm with the urgency often required in product development?
Mm-hmm. I think you will always be a bit triggered. I don't think you will always be like that. Well, my previous manager was quite calm. It was hard to see him like with high peaks, but for people that are a bit more emotional and so on, it's a little bit hard. It doesn't mean to be plain, but it means also how big of a difference this becomes. No, so one thing is to be like this, and the other one is to have these high peaks that really trigger you. So to me, it's about, for instance, something that really helps is about trying to pause or do exercises about breathing whenever you see that despite the rushness and high pressure deliverables and so on, it's like, okay, I'm working on what is in my control. I'm thinking about what are the things that could go wrong. The team is aligned with that. I'm communicating to stakeholders, like all the things that you can really manage are done. And then sometimes even if you feel still stressed, to me, it helps to go for a walk, to do some breathing exercises. There is a very good one. One of the most powerful ones is the one that you breathe for 4 seconds, then you hold the breath, then you release for 4 seconds, and then you hold it back. It really reduces the heartbeat. And it's something as simple, really, sometimes it's just 1 minute. 1 minute. It's like, no, I don't have time. 1 minute. No excuses. Dedicate 1 minute whenever you feel like you're really triggered, and then you come back to work. And you will see how that makes a difference. So again, it's not about always being calm, but it's about making sure that this doesn't become a roller coaster, let's say.
Yeah, I can emphasize that as well, because I'm more on the high peak side of things, I
Yeah.
would say. So
It's
those
easy, it's
tips are
easy.
great.
Yeah,
I
and
usually
the thing about sorry, no, the thing about looking from above, sometimes it really helps me too. I try to apply it. It's not easy because you really have to apply it. It's not just think about it. No, you really have to think about it and visualize a little bit that. And when you zoom out, you realize like, okay, yes, this is very important. But nowadays in our work, sometimes yes, but sometimes we don't save people's lives. Sometimes we do. So it depends. We have to put some things into perspective. It's very important that release. It's very important that new feature. I know you take your job very seriously, but if you zoom out a little bit, how important that really is, or if you look in 1 year, 2 years from now, how important that release was that critical? Did you do everything that was in your power, in your hand? Then let it go, and don't take it so personal.
Okay, so we have one last question.
Let's go
Then
for it.
we might release you to the evening. So the last one is about choosing actions over truths more than emotions. But what if different people have different truths based on their emotions or their personal perspectives? That's a
Yeah,
tough one.
it's a tough one, but it's totally true. The first one is to acknowledge and to know where they are coming from, because their truth could be different coming from where. And I think if you don't give the space to speak up, to listen to them, what they really mean, and why they consider that that's their truth, then you might not reach a unique consensus. So there is one point about listening, and then there is another point of expressing yourself. PMs, we have to really fight against saying yes to everyone, because then it creates craziness in the team and for yourself, right? So you have to also make sure that you speak up and say what are your reasons, where are you coming from. So there is the moment about giving the space for everyone to speak up, trying to put it up front and having an honest conversation. Where are you coming from? Where I'm coming from? And then I think it's also a bit about influencing and negotiating. um, you have to give a bit, you have to let go and say this courageous no that we were talking about. So it's about finding this compromise between all of that. But the first one will start with really understanding where they are coming from and speaking up to try to find a common ground. Not easy, I know.
I think that also ties a bit into the listening talking ratio,
Yeah.
because when you need to understand where someone else is coming from, you need to emphasize, and you have to ask questions to understand why their perception of a certain situation is exactly like this, and why certain why certain truths come, or where certain truths come from.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see myself sometimes saying like, listening to someone just already thinking my answer, like I'm going to be say that, and I'm like, hey, stop, you're not really listening to what the other person is telling you. You're just thinking of what you're going to reply back. And again, I don't mean only at work. I think this also works in your professional life, personal life. Whenever you have a conflict with with friends, with your partner, and things like that, it's like suddenly you just want to jump and speak your truth without listening to what the other person is saying. So, yeah, it's a good reminder for us to try to listen a bit more.
Yep, absolutely. So this was the last question we currently have. So let's move on.
Thank you, everyone, for all
Yeah,
the questions. Thanks a lot.
yeah, thank you all for your questions and answers. This is basically the end for today. So we would like to also mention that we are always looking for talented PMs. So you can apply by scanning the QR code on the screen. And I would also like to invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, where we share insights and our experiences in product that we gained during all of our missions with our clients. So next week, Alexandra Marschner, Group Product Manager at Trusted Jobs, will speak about navigating founder mode. Feel free to join us for another session full of insights on Tuesday. Yes, it's Tuesday, the weekdays. So thank you very much, Begoña, for an interesting talk, and a big thank you to our audience for joining us today. We hope to see many of you next time, and have a good rest of the day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. Ciao, everyone. Thanks for being here.